One of the ways that I like to support my local community is to give back when I can. And when I heard that the Arc in Hanover, located in Hanover, Virginia, was looking for artists to paint something from their warehouse to be donated for a local auction, I was totally in. The back warehouse of this place was packed to the rafters. It was like a treasure hunt. I found a couple of pieces that I considered, and one was this beautiful yellow trunk. I thought that I could possibly paint it and add wheels and somebody might use it for a coffee table. Next up was this vanity missing a mirror. I thought that I could take apart the vanity and create two tables. And then I saw this beauty hiding in the back. And this was the piece that I chose for my auction makeover. The plan is for the artist to take that piece home, upcycle it, paint it, change it in some way, and bring it back to the store for their auction happening in June of 2024. So let's paint this thing pretty and get it back to the Arc so that they can make the most money possible for their local community. Structurally, this piece is sound, it's clean, but it does have some issues with a failing finish. In order to paint this piece and get it ready for paint, I'm going to have to come in and scrape off any pieces that are flaking off. Once they are completely removed, I'll be able to fill it in with mud and sand it back to flat. Don't be afraid to put in a little sweat equity on your pieces. A failing finish like this is totally repairable. Using my metal spatula, I pushed as hard as I could and removed any pieces or any flaky bits that were sitting on the top of the surface. You can see underneath there is a particle board, so once I fill that in, I'm going to have to seal it up before I begin to paint, because I do not want it bubbling up again once I actually get my paint finish on there. So the plan is wipe off all of that failing finish and get it ready for a little bit of Dixie Belle's mud. I use Dixie Belle's mud for a ton of things, filling in hardware, filling in holes, and repairing finish issues like this. You simply scrape it on, and I like to overfill a little bit, and then once it dries, you can come back in and sand it back to flat. You won't even know that those little damages were there. Dixie Belle mud comes in 3 different colors, but since I'm not planning on staining this piece, it doesn't matter which color I use. After it has dried, I usually wait about a day or so. You can come in and sand it back to flat. I like to use small circular motions to really get in and make the edges of the overfill just disappear. Don't be surprised that after you sand it back, you might have to come back in and add a little bit more. Surfaces are uneven, sometimes things get sanded back too far. You might need more than one application of Dixie Belle's mud for this style of project. To get in there and really seal that mud, I'm going to be using my bonding boss in white. This is going to make sure that that mud won't get reactivated when I paint over top, but I'm also going to paint the entire piece with bonding boss. The finish is almost like a melamine plasticized finish, so this will make sure that my paint is going to stick, and it's going to stick well. Bonding Boss is one of the things in my toolbox that I use all of the time. It's got the built-in primer for any bleed through that you might possibly have on any pieces, and it also contains Slick Stick, which is your adhesion primer for anything slick or shiny like this little piece of furniture. It's super simple to apply. I personally like to use a roller to cover the area as much as I can, as well as keep it nice and flat, though this bonding boss is actually really smooth and really smooth finish. Make sure you apply 2 even coats and wait 24 hours before you begin to paint. And using bonding boss in white is going to give me a beautiful base to get in here and paint my project. I will use less paint with this nice light finish. First color up is Pink Champagne. I covered the entire piece in Pink Champagne as a base for my decoupage paper. This paper is called Peaceful Peonies. It's really big and it's really beautiful. I really love this piece and I actually can't wait to use it on any other projects as well. So the plan is to apply the paper to the front 2 ovals on this chest. The way that I like to apply my paper might be different than the way that other people do it, but guess what? There's no rules in painting. You can do this however it works for you. My first step is to score the edges so that I can cut the paper to fit the size of the inset panel. Some people like to paint first, then put the paper on. You can do it either way. Personally, I like to put the paper on and then paint in. So I'm going to cut this little piece. It's a rice paper. It's a little bit thicker than normal decoupage paper, and I'm going to stick it on the front two ovals. So let's talk about my way that I do decoupage, aka decoupage. However you say it, however you do it, it's going to turn out fabulous. I like to spray the back of the paper with water. This is going to make it a tiny bit stretchy. Then apply your satin clear coat to your project. Push the paper down onto your satin clear coat from the middle outwards and use a small piece of plastic wrap to push out any bubbles or wrinkles. It is then flat, it is perfect, and you're ready to start painting. So what's the plan for paint on this piece? Well, it's going to be Terra Clay Paint. Terra Clay Paint is my favorite chalk mineral paint, although it's a clay mineral paint. It's a thicker paint, which means that you can actually build up texture and color on your projects. The colors used for this project were Blue Agave, Prairie Dawn, Moonbeam, and Desert Tan. I also used a little bit of wheat, which is kind of like the yellow color that you're seeing. Mixed all together, they create a beautiful blend. I don't use the traditional way of painting on paint. For Terra Clay Paint, I like to pat it on. I'm literally patting that paint on with a natural fiber brush. By patting it on, I'm creating texture where there wasn't any before. Next up, I want to age this piece. I want this piece to look like an old piece of music paper, like an old book. So I'm going to dirt it up with a little bit of voodoo gel stain. Patting on this beautiful deep dark tobacco road is going to give the piece a lot more age, and it's going to stick really well into the crevices where the paint is its little peaks and valleys. So I did this before I sealed my project. If I were to do it again, I would seal my project first with Terra Tuff, then I would do the tobacco road, because in some parts it was hard to pull it back all the way, and since Terra can be reactivated by water, I was removing paint at the same time as I was putting on the tobacco road. But I absolutely loved the way that this turned out. It really did age the piece and make it look authentic. I love the color of the Terra Clay Paint with the tobacco road over top. It's the perfect way to make it look like old paper. But since Terra Clay Paint is clay, and hello, clay absorbs water, I would totally recommend sealing it before you do this if you were to try this on your own projects. Lesson learned, it was just a little bit more work than I had to put in. Speaking of sealing your piece, after I was done this part and I let it get dry, I came back in and used my Terra Seal, which is Terra Tuff, to lock in my color and all of my work. I don't want to overbrush the Terra Tuff because it will start to remove the paint a little bit. So with gentle brush strokes, I covered the entire piece with Terra Tuff, and then I did it again for extra protection. So Terra Tuff is the toughest of the top coats for Terra Clay Paint. Like I said, you're going to see me brushing it on gently, covering the entire surface. After that dries, I'm going to come back in and do a whole nother coat. You also have the option of using Terra Matte, which is not as shiny, obviously. Terra Matte just means it's more flat, and it actually has less protection in it than the Terra Tuff. If you ask me, I would say Terra Tuff is very similar to Gator Hide from the Chalk Mineral Paint line. It's hard to see with the colors that I use since they are so light and neutral, but when you apply the top coat to your Terra paint, it comes back to life. If you're using a vibrant color like the pistachio green or the malachite, which is like a dark green, you would really see it change when you apply the top coat. Applying the top coat to Terra Clay Paint is like the magical finishing touch to get your paint to just pop. After I sealed my piece, I did add a touch of more wax. So I came in with a little bit of brown and then of course gilding wax for my project. I then grabbed some beautiful new hardware since this piece was missing one side of the hardware from Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby has great deals on hardware if you're looking. About every 2 weeks they put all of their hardware at 50% off. What do you think of this beautiful makeover? I love how Terra Clay Paint allows me to create an old world style finish. I love the texture that it gives on a piece that didn't have any texture before, and I love the way that that shading added the vibe of an old music sheet of paper. To the Arc in Hanover, and they will be showcasing this at their auction in mid-June. I'm really curious to see how much money we can raise for our local community. Thanks for watching and have a great day.